If you've been feeling stressed, overwhelmed or just running on empty, our next guest might have something pretty practical to offer you. Joe Forde is co-founder of the Orchard Wellness Centre in Ennis and runs local breathwork workshops focused on health, vitality and managing stress. Joe, good morning to you.
Morning, Alan.
Thanks very much for coming in. So explain a bit more about the breathwork.
Yeah, well, I suppose breathwork is the practice of consciously and intentionally changing our breathing pattern to improve our health and well-being, you know. And I suppose the thing about it is there's very few things in life that we do every minute of every day. And I suppose we don't give it much concern, really. I suppose we would prioritise eating and drinking water and eating healthily a lot more. But when we think about it, like we'd say, every minute of every day we're breathing, and if we're not breathing efficiently or effectively, our body isn't getting the uptake of oxygen that we could be getting.
And even as you say that, I mean, it seems so blindingly obvious, yet when you mentioned there, you know, breathing is helpful in terms of your health and well-being, I don't think very few, if any of us, think of it as like that. We just think of breath as, you know, you have to breathe.
Yes.
Drinking oxygen and, you know, to live. But other than that, you wouldn't think of it as having... Can you tell us more about how changing your breathing patterns and working on breathing techniques can actually have health benefits?
Yeah, and I suppose the first thing is awareness, and that's the first step. And the awareness of, I suppose we all have a breathing pattern that gets created, and that gets created through our lifetime, through experiences. Now, if we have a lot of stressful experiences, we can have a stressful breathing pattern. And
can that be a shorter breathing pattern?
Yes, a faster breathing pattern. We're breathing more rapidly. And a lot of the time we'd say, and just for a moment, if people just put one hand on their chest and one hand on their belly and just take a breath in and just notice where the movement is. And for a large amount of people, they'll find it is upper chest. The shoulders rise when they breathe, and their upper chest breathing. And that's a very short, rapid, faster rate of breathing. And it's only using the upper lobes of the lungs. And I suppose the upper lobes of the lungs are where what they call the sympathetic nerves are, and they're the nerves that actually switch on our stress response. So, and if we're breathing like that quite a lot, we're not actually utilising our diaphragm, which is our main muscle for breathing. So when we actually diaphragmatic breathe and there's more movement lower down, we start to actually fill the lower lobes of our lungs, and that's where the parasympathetic nerves are, and they're the ones that switch on our relaxation response. I've just,
even, Joe, as you're talking there, I've suddenly for the first time in a long time become very conscious of my breathing.
Yes, yeah.
So like I say, it's something people generally, I suppose, don't think about. And how can breathwork help with things like stress and anxiety, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about some simple breathing techniques people can utilise, but how can it help address those kind of issues?
Yeah, and I suppose that's where people a lot of time will start for breath work, and I suppose everybody will say, oh, take a deep breath, you know what I mean? But it's a bit more than that. It's how we actually breathe, and with the pace of living that we've become accustomed to, we've started to become very much that upper chest fast breathers, sometimes even mouth breathing, which would be very, very unhealthy. Now, our nose is connected to our diaphragm, so when we actually breathe in through our nose and we breathe consciously, now sometimes we might have to actually lie down and bring our knees up and place our hands on our belly and start to use that muscle. The diaphragm runs across and under the ribs, and when we breathe in, it pushes down, so it moves out the belly. But a lot of time people are actually breathing the opposite way. They're breathing in, they're pulling in their belly, and they're breathing up into their chest, you know. So once that one change can make a massive difference, because like I said, we actually activate those relaxation response nerves in the lungs, and they start to send signals to our brain. But also then we say, if we actually start to change from breathing out through our mouth to breathing out through our nose, we'll naturally slow down the rate of our breathing. And that will actually help as well, we'd say, for us to feel more relaxed. Plus as well, we won't blow off too much carbon dioxide. A lot of time, I suppose, carbon dioxide has kind of, I suppose people see it as a waste gas or something like that, but it plays a major role in our system in order for our body to uptake more oxygen. If we blow off too much carbon dioxide, what happens is we don't actually uptake as much oxygen when we're breathing. We overbreathe, as they say, you know.
You mentioned earlier on that breathing through your nose is much better than through your mouth. Why is that? Why is breathing through your mouth not as good, or why is it potentially bad?
There's a number of things. The first thing is when we breathe through our mouth, we don't actually filter the air. And that's one major thing. The other thing is, we'd say when we breathe through our mouth, the air, whatever temperature the air is on the outside, it doesn't change it. When we breathe through the nose, our nose warms the air and prepares it for our lungs. Warm air going into the lungs will actually create expansion. If we go out in a cold morning and you take a breath through the mouth, you'll know what happens. You'll have that contraction in the chest. Yeah. So that's one thing. But like that, we say when we're breathing through the mouth, we say we are taking in a lot of, I suppose we're taking a lot more dust particles. We're taking a lot of stuff in the environment. Can be viruses and bacteria and all that kind of stuff, where the nose really helps to filter all that. Plus as well, when we breathe through the mouth, we don't actually utilise a really good molecule called nitric oxide, and that has a reservoir in the sinus area of the nose. And nitric oxide is what they call a bronchial and vasodilator. So it helps to widen our airways and widen our blood vessels. So that in turn then increases oxygen delivery and increases blood circulation. You know what I mean? So small little changes can make a major difference in how we operate. And not alone, we'd say, does it I suppose influence our respiratory system, but it also influences our digestive system, our circulation. Everything is related to oxygen at the end of the day.
When you were talking there, Joe, about breathing in pollution and people who have viruses and things like that, I was like, God, I'm on the verge of getting my COVID masks out again. What are people coming to you at the Orchard Wellness Centre for in terms of their breathing and breathing techniques, Joe? Are there particular issues that they're predominantly trying to address? Maybe are you most commonly helping people who have issues sleeping or with being active, playing sport, that their breathing isn't up to, help enabling them to do that? What are the kind of issues people come to you with?
Yeah, I suppose most of my work is clinical hypnotherapy, and that's how I actually got to start using breathwork as well. And a lot of the people that would be coming to me would be people that would have problems with like panic or stress, anxiety, things like that. And sleep problems as well. If we're inefficient breathers, what we'll find is it will affect our sleep as well. Particularly, we'd say if we're mouth breathing at night, it'll create quite a lot of dehydration, and it'll interrupt our sleep as well. We'd say, because we're kind of activating that stress response. And because if we're mouth breathing and we're blowing off too much carbon dioxide, we'll lower that uptake of oxygen into our cells and muscles. So we can find out in the morning we're a bit foggy brained, things like that. Our energy is low, So I suppose we don't give oxygen as much credit as it needs for function. But like that, we'd say, I suppose the main way that people would come to me, we would say, more in the workshops I do. Where we start from learning how the respiratory system works, how we can utilise it, how we can actually make small changes so that we have a toolbox of self-care tools. So after a while, what we're I suppose aiming for is that we're retraining ourselves to breathe more efficiently. But then as well, we say if stress pops up, we know exactly what to do for that. If it's a case that we're feeling a bit sluggish, we know that we can change our breathing and do a certain pattern to be able to boost more energy, things like that. And there's kind of a breathwork for everything, really. If when you start to look into it, it's a broad modality, really. Yeah.
And given that it is a broad modality, and there are a number of different reasons why people might be coming to you to address their breathing, and there might be different techniques depending on the person's issue. How long, though, can it generally take before people start to feel a difference when they're practicing breathwork regularly?
That's the actual great thing about breathwork, is that you literally start to take notice of a difference nearly straight away. We'd say if you do a breathwork practice for about 10 minutes, you feel that difference there and then. Now, it doesn't mean that you've made the permanent change.
That it will last.
But like that, we'd say it's through developing a practice, but then also developing the awareness of that, it's at certain times of the day that you notice that, actually I'm starting to breathe faster and upper chest and stuff like that. Okay, I know what to do now, we'd say. So like that, we'd say I do a one-day workshop, and in that one-day workshop, I suppose it's based around the whole premise of learning through. We learn, we experience, and then we practice. And after the workshop, then people have online resources as well to back up what they've learned at the workshop. And we do a 4-week breathwork challenge on WhatsApp as well, so that implementing breathwork techniques each week, and it's just a short daily practice. And so that way, we'd say people are starting to implement it into their life. A lot of the time, I suppose people can go to workshops, they'll learn some great stuff, but afterwards, the implementation doesn't happen. So in the program that I've put together, I kind of tackle all those different areas so that people are actually starting to use what they've learned as well. Yeah.
And how do you find business in terms of people and breathworking in Clare? Is it resonating? Are you quite busy? Spreading through word of mouth, people using their new breathing techniques to tell people about what you do and how beneficial it is.
Yeah, and I suppose breathwork is something that adds to other things as well. Like I said, the hypnotherapy work and that kind of stuff as well. It plays a great role in that because it's a tool that people can start to use themselves, and it's a self-care tool. People are becoming more aware. There's a lot more books being written on the subject as well, and I suppose it's popping up in more podcasts and stuff like that. So it's a number of years ago, when you talk about breathwork, people wouldn't really have heard about it, but now it's starting to, pop up in a lot more areas as well. So I suppose it's becoming more popular, and for a reason, because I suppose people get results as well, and it's something that they can develop themselves in a practice. Yeah.
Okay, so you're clearly busy, and what makes an in-person workshop different from trying breathing exercises online?
I suppose online, we'd say a lot of the time you can get you can get everything you want on YouTube. But the thing about it is it isn't put into a structured practice or a system. And as well, we'd say if you're having difficulty with something, you've nobody to ask or things like that. And it's very hard to beat being in a room, getting an experience as well, and being guided through it in a systematic way, so people are learning in small bites, so at the end of the workshop they can put it all together. A lot of time we'll say we might be getting the expert level on YouTube at the start. So we're trying to do things that we haven't been actually primed to do. So though I suppose the way the workshop is set up is somebody that has never done workshop or done breathwork before can come in and learn from the very start. And at the end of the workshop, they have a range of self-care tools that they can use, and they understand why they're using them as well, because if we know why we're doing something, it makes it a lot better for us to actually implement it. Yeah. Okay.
Is there a simple breathing technique you could show me? For example, say, I wanted help with sleeping better or something like that. Yes. What would you suggest?
Well, one of the things we would say for sleeping better would be that we actually extend our exhalation, because when we breathe in, our heart rate goes up. When we breathe out, our heart rate goes down. So if we extend that exhalation, we'll actually lower our heart rate, and we'll get into what they call that parasympathetic response.
Okay, so the exhalation should be bigger or longer than the inhalation.
That's right.
But even with that, if I was to inhale, should I still take a deep breath in?
Well, we'd say it would be more like you take maybe that breath in for 4 seconds, and you might breathe out, then we'd say through your nose for 8 seconds. Or 6 or 8, just a little bit longer.
Okay, God, when you said 6 or 8 seconds, I was suddenly aware of how long that is breathing out through my nose.
Yes. Yeah, and that's why it takes a little bit of practice. But where I would say for people to start is, first of all, just even if a person was to make one change that would make a great difference, would be actually practicing that diaphragmatic breathing. So placing the hands and just becoming aware of, as you breathe in, that it's like you're blowing up a balloon and your belly comes out towards your hands. And as you breathe out, it's going back towards your spine. And the minute you change that...
Am I doing it wrong? I felt like when I breathed in, my stomach was going in, and as I was exhaling, my stomach was going out.
And that's exactly what most people are doing. We'd say they're breathing in reverse, because they're not actually using their diaphragm properly. So
how do I'm kind of aware of how do I change that?
How do you change that? Well, first of all, we possibly won't be able to get to change it today, because a lot of time when we get used to that, we're using the muscles in the different way. So what I would get people to do is lie down on their back, bring up their knees as if they were going to do sit-ups, and that takes the pressure off the diaphragm. Okay. And then place their hands on the belly button area, and start to breathe in, and they'll notice then, we'd say, that they can actually, that they're getting that expansion of that area. The diaphragm starts to move down and push out, we'd say.
Okay, that is something particularly, so I'm clearly doing it wrong, and I've never realised that I'm going to have to delve into further with you, but unfortunately it won't make great radio if I lie down on the floor now and with my knees up to my diaphragm.
So another good quick one we'd say is a thing called box breathing.
Okay.
And that's where we breathe in for maybe 4 seconds. We hold for 4. Now, it might be 3 seconds for some people. We hold the breath for 3 or 4 seconds. We breathe out for 3 or 4 seconds. And then we just hold again for 3 or 4 seconds before we start the process again. And what that does is it just helps us to regulate our system, and it gives us a nice level of relaxation but also alertness. So we feel nice and alert, and we feel nice and relaxed at the same time.
I tell you what, there's a lot in this. Keen to find out more. We'll definitely have to have you back in, or I must pop along to your workshop. But speaking of which, you have workshops coming up the 17th, and then I think another one March 28th.
That's right, yes. Yeah, so there's still a few spaces left in the one for the 17th. We hold the workshops actually just outside Ennis in the Carrigoran Health and Wellness Centre there. It's very accessible, we say, for people from Ennis, Limerick and Galway, so it's quite a nice location and has a beautiful setting, you know. It's a full day. A lot of people will say, well, what are we going to be doing breathing for a full day? But it goes very, very quickly.
You should say you're breathing for a full day every day.
Yeah. We hope you're breathing for a full day.
We hope you are, because you're not going to be around for too long. Okay, if people want to find out more about the workshops and just the Orchard Wellness Centre itself, Joe, have you a website? Or?
Yeah, we'd say for the workshops, it's powerofbreath.ie. And for anything that's going on in Orchard Wellness, it's orchardwellness.ie as well. So we keep it simple.
Brilliant stuff. I'm going to have to pay you a visit, Joe. It's really, really interesting stuff. And,
you're very welcome.
I suppose we take it for granted breathing, and you know, clearly there's a lot more to it. Like there, where I just suddenly realised I'm not breathing correctly, apart from staying alive. Joe, thank you so much. That is Joe Forde, the co-founder of the Orchard Wellness Centre in Ennis.